In this video, I will be covering Azure Security Center. Some of the material of this video is being created by Mr. Ben Kliger, employee of Microsoft. Okay, without any further ado, let's take a look at what I will be covering in this video. So I'll first talk about the cloud security considerations a little bit. This is not going to be too long, as I just want to focus on the matter of cloud security. Then I'll talk about how to use Azure Security Center to improve security posture. Basically, I'll talk about 3 different pillars of Security Center. And then finally, using a video produced by Microsoft, I'll show you the new innovations in this field. Azure Security Center is a hybrid service. I'm going to be repeating this all throughout this slide set in this video and multiple times, but before I go any further, let me emphasize on the fact that the Azure clients can protect their servers no matter where those are or where those run. They can be on Azure virtual machine sets, so basically the virtual machines that you create on Azure. They can be residing and running on the other clouds, AWS or Google Cloud, or they could be running on client's premises. No matter where they are and where they're running, you can use Azure Security Center in order to secure them. This is actually what we refer to as hybridness of the Azure Security Center. Azure Security is a shared responsibility model. Basically what it means is there are some stuff that are purely Microsoft's commitment to secure, and there are some that are joint responsibility of the user, the client, and Microsoft in order to do so. So the shared responsibility model for cloud security that Microsoft offers is secure foundation, which basically are the physical assets, data center operations, and the cloud infrastructure, which is the Microsoft commitment. Remember, these exist on the Microsoft cloud, and therefore Microsoft commits to securing them. And then there are some joint responsibilities that need the user or client to also take some steps in order to secure them. Microsoft provides built-in controls to user, but then that's the user that has to make sure everything is up to the par. Those are like virtual machines and networks, apps and workloads, and the data. So now let's go back and talk a little bit about the security situation right now. With the new technology, with the new power of the cloud, of course, a new approach to security is needed. Infrastructure increasingly is distributed across public clouds and on-premises data centers. Remember, the new situation is we have rapidly changing resources. Every resource these days is not really staying there for a long time in the state that they had on day one. Most of the resources are changing, which this basically introduces a challenge. You will have more transmissions, more transferring of the information, which exposes the data while there are data in motion. We have storage issues, movement between storage issues. We have new apps coming up with their new possibilities, with the new features, with the new functionalities and all those, which all of these things are rapidly changing. And then we have increasingly sophisticated attacks happening these days. Hackers gaining access to the new resources, including the cloud computing itself, have increased and improved their power of attack. Now, more sophisticated algorithms are being used in attacks. More resources are available to those sophisticated algorithms, and the hackers are much more educated than they used to be in the past. Data is freely accessible to those guys, and they know how to take advantage of those. New type of attacks are coming out, new tools of attack are coming out, and considering that increase in the power of local computers and the cloud computing, these guys, these new attackers, are actually coming with a new power and new methodology of attacking the resources. The other thing is security skills are in short supply. Not a lot of people really are into becoming security specialists as they used to be. Plus, It is very much more challenging than before to be a security specialist, considering the changes in the market and the changes in the industry. All in all together, considering these matters, you can see that the new approach to security is needed. This basically is the motivation of Microsoft to start Security Center being designed the way it is designed now. If you look at the Azure Security Center, there are three major pillars to this infrastructure security product from Microsoft. First, strengthen security posture is where actually through providing tools, reports, and interfaces, Microsoft helps you strengthen up your security posture and being in a better situation. And then the second pillar is protecting against threats. So Microsoft commonly stops the threats using Security Center. And then get secure faster, considering the power of cloud in case of a threat or a exploit happening, you can get secure faster using all the compute power behind the scene and all the resources available behind the scene. So for the rest of this video, we're going to go through all these three pillars through explanation of the slides and also the demos that you guys are going to see. But before we start with the first one, let's take a look at the overall Security Center architecture. So if you consider Windows and Linux computers that are being used within the VMs that you create on an Azure subscription, Microsoft adds agents to those in order to secure every single node of your network. Let's take a look over here. So you have on-premises private and public clouds that all your information are available over there, which basically the Windows and Linux agents that Microsoft adds to those guys helps protecting and monitoring those guys, and that service is happening through Azure Security Center. No matter if you're using infrastructure as a service or you're using platform as a service, Microsoft gathers information through the agents that are installed over your virtual machines and then combine those with the threat intelligence and the dictionaries and the resources that already show what type of threats could happen through analytics that are being gathered by security analytics part of the Security Center, and then adding to those a scalable log analytics platform helps Microsoft to be able to create a security report for you, which then you can download it to your Excel and go through Power BI in order to analyze it. Remember, almost everything in Security Center architecture is based on scalable log analytics. So that is the center of everything, okay? So information is being gathered from your on-premises and is being compared with the historical data and then is being combined and summarized into a report that can then help you make decisions. And based on those decisions, with clicking on only one button or two or checking one check mark or two, you can get back to be secure as fast as possible. Also, all of those information are being fed to the Azure Security Center. So security dashboards are there for you to use, which deliver rapid insights into security state across all workloads. Then the actionable security recommendations are going to be provided to you. So basically what Security Center does is creates recommendations for you, either based on machine learning or based on historical data, or even created by your own users and subscribers, so that you know what is the best action to be taken. Remember, Microsoft not necessarily does take those actions for you, they provide the recommendations, and you're going to see this during the demo. So curated, prioritized security alerts are going to be provided to you through Azure Security Center. And then investigation tools and log searches are provided to you too. So as you can see, it's a full system of everything working together in order to making your device and your subscriptions safer. One thing to re-emphasize is in order to monitor every VM, Microsoft adds Linux and Windows agents to those specific virtual machines so that information could be monitored in real time. So let's talk about strengthening the security posture. Let me go back 2 slides and remind you we had 3 pillars: strengthen security posture, protect against threats, get secure faster. And now we're talking about the first pillar of this game. So when we talk about strengthening security posture, basically we talk about manage organizational security policy and compliance. And remember, almost everything in security at the end of the day goes back to the security compliance and policies. If you have security policies in place and they look good, but they're not being implemented or they're not being complied by different users, then you basically have no security. Therefore, continuously assessing security state is what we want to do in this part so that we make sure every single virtual machine or network component of yours is actually in compliance with those very well defined organizational security policy and compliance rules. And then finally, optimize and improve security by configuring recommended controls. So manage those controls and security policies, continuously monitor and assess if those are in effect, properly in effect, and finally, based on the result, optimizing and improving security by configuring those recommended controls coming to you. So, talking about manage organizational security policy and more compliance, as you can see in this slide, Azure gives you an interface. Again, you're going to see this more in the demo that helps you review coverage of Azure Security Center across different subscriptions in just one single interface. And you can see how many management groups you have, you can see how many subscriptions you have, and how many workspaces you have, and more detailed information about those comes after that. And you can basically manage everything within your organizational security schema. The interface also lets you easily set centralized security policies across multiple subscriptions. So you don't need to go back subscription to subscription in order to set your security policies. You can do all of them in just one centralized security plan. And then finally, you can track and review policy compliance and governance over time. This is going to be the place to revisit more often by your security administrators, and the interface is designed to provide information in a very brief, understandable, and at the same time drillable to be a detailed oriented interface. Next is talking about continuously assessing and optimizing with secure source. So what you can get through Security Center is getting insights on the security states across your infrastructure. During the demo, you will see that you can simply go and take a look at your network map. You can take a look at your network topology in a visualized way and look at the configuration that already is using. Through a patented algorithm, Microsoft basically looks into every single VM and component you have and then shows the connectivity they can have. So basically, Microsoft can show you, okay, VM1 can get connected to VM22 through this protocol or through this specific application. And you can see all those dependencies and connections and relationships. And also, you will receive prioritized recommendations with a security score. So every item, and again, you're going to see this during the demo, but every item that you have in your VNet basically is going to be associated with a security score, which shows you how secure that item is. You can compare those and figure out if something is more or less secure than you want them to be. And based on the information that you receive, you can apply secure configuration standard with built-in recommendations that you receive from Security Center, and then therefore reduce the attack surface by applying proactive hygiene measures. So this basically is going to bring you down to be able to optimize and improve your security while you using the configuration recommendations that Microsoft gives you. So this is slides, this is screen actually is showing you some of the examples. Remember, I just want you to get familiarized with the face of the interface. I know it's very difficult to read these, and that was not my intention to begin with. I just want you to see, for example, over here you have a very high priority recommendation, while as you can see over here in this column, you're receiving some scores regarding the security score of that specific resource, which is going to make you actually being able to make a better decision. At this point, we're going to have a demo. Remember, this demo is provided by Mr. Ben Clear of Microsoft Ignite.
Over here, it will be here, right in the left navigation menu of the Azure portal. When you click on that, that's it. Security Center is enabled. Start scanning your environment and assessing it against the security policies. But the stuff I want you to notice here are first, the things that I've talked about, policy and compliance, right, and the overall compliance score, right? You can see that I'm currently filtered to view 2 subscriptions. Those 2 are covered in the standard tier of Azure Security Center. But had I selected more subscriptions, I could have seen if they are on the free tier, which means that they get tier. And had I have shadow IT subscriptions, right, in my environment, I would have seen them in the not covered part. But let's now look on the secure score. This is the part where you can understand which recommendations are, should get a higher priority than others, right, and then can help you security posture in a more dramatic way. It's available here as part of the resource security hygiene. You can see what is the current secure score and what is the maximum secure score you can get to. If you want to drill deeper into that and understand what are the different recommendations that you have and what is their associated secure score, you simply click on that. And then you get to see the full list of recommendations from Azure Security Center, right? And what is the relevant secure score for those specific type of resources. So for example, we can see that we have here a recommendation to disable unrestricted network access to storage accounts. That's a preview recommendation. It applies to 90 storage accounts. And if I will mitigate that specific recommendation, that will improve my overall secure score with 15 points. Right? And every recommendation in Azure Security Center, that's important to understand, comes with its relevant secure score tagging. Next thing I want to show you is the network map, available as part of the networking section in Azure Security Center. You can either get to that from the left navigation menu over here, or from the overview dashboard by looking at the networking section. Can you see my screen? Great. So that's the network map. It is available already. It's one of our announcements for this week. It's available in public preview. When you will click on that, as I said, you will get a view of your existing topology, right? How it looks like. The map is fully interactive, right? So I can click on a specific node. I get all of the information about it. It's relevant recommendations. I can see the indications on the map itself for what is the security state of a specific resource that is currently covered in the network map. So it's basically a view of your existing configuration, right, of the topology with security overlays on top of that. As I said, everything is fully interactive, so you can choose to collapse a specific node if you don't want to see it. Now, by default, we're seeing resources that have high and medium severities. Let's select all. And let's choose to view resources that are not just internet-facing, but will view internal ones as well. And we will see that the map changes, right? More than that, let me just remove one of the subscriptions over here. I don't want to look at it. Just a second. One more thing I want to show you, right, is the traffic view that is also available as part of this network map. It enables you to understand how your traffic is currently configured, right, within the workload. That means which VMs can communicate with which VMs. That is based on a proprietary analysis that we are doing to all of the rules in the network security groups in the workload, right? That helps you create a reachability graph and understand if maybe something is misconfigured in your environment, right? For example, let's select this node here, over here. And when we click on the traffic view, we can see that in terms of its outbound communication, it can communicate with these 3 VMs, but we can see that there is a different configuration here, right? Different ports and protocols that are currently configured for this VM when it is talking with VM2, but there is another configuration when it is talking to the other VMs. That may indicate on some misconfiguration, right, of the network security groups in the workload, that that's something that requires your attention, that requires a deeper analysis. So that was about the network map.
Okay, so now let's talk about protection against the threats, which is the second pillar of the security center. So when we talk about this one, actually, we talk about services including detect and block advanced malware and threats for servers, detect threats across IaaS and PaaS service using advanced analytics, reduce exposure to brute force attacks, and protect data services against malicious attacks. So, detection of the threats on servers happens with behavior analytics and machine learning. So, basically, the artificial intelligence behind the scene is constantly detecting any type of malicious behavior and stops those attacks. You will get Windows Server endpoint detection and response with integration of Windows Defender ATP. And also, you will automate application whitelisting with a machine learning based solution. So, through the agents on your servers, Microsoft can monitor and uses the EDR of your server through the Defender ADPs that are over there to give you recommendations. And also, based on the machine learning, you will have an automated whitelisting happening when you use Security Center of the Microsoft. And remember, this is all about both Windows and Linux servers, and it's not like proprietary to Microsoft Windows itself. So detect threats across services also happens when you use Security Center. It detects threats targeting Azure services such as Azure App Services, Azure SQL, storage services, and more. Again, through machine learning. Get Azure UE Bay with the integration of Microsoft Cloud App Security if you opt in for it. And finally, it can investigate and respond to an attack with ASC Fusion Kill chain analysis. Everything is provided with the power of cloud computing behind the scene through taking advantage of the machine learning capabilities of the Microsoft Azure. And finally, based on the information you gather, you can limit exposure to the brute force attacks, uh, basically with using the JIT or just-in-time VM access. This is one of the more commonly used features of the security center. So basically what you do is you decide the access to a specific server to a specific VM port be granted for a specific amount of time. Like you do decide, okay, my VM1 will open server port 80 for the next hour, and you submit this request to the security center, and the security center approves it based on your credentials and if you are allowed to do so or not. And then the server port is going to be open for the next hour and then automatically will be closed so nobody has access to that port. And this basically reduces your exposure surface to any possible brute force attack, because when the port is closed, so the attack is going to be unsuccessful no matter what. So it reduces access to VM ports only when it's needed with just-in-time VM access, and access automatically granted for selected ports and for limited time, as I said, approved users and a specific source IPs. You can even define which specific source IPs can have access to this port. Imagine a situation that you want to transfer something from your on-premises server to your VM and the Azure cloud. And you can open up the VM TCP port for maybe half an hour, depending on the size of the information, and open it only for the IP address of on-premises VM. So the on-premises VM can start transferring information up to the VM in the cloud. And you don't need to be worried about forgetting going back and closing down the port, because at the end of this transfer, or just after half an hour or 1 hour, whatever is the duration you define, the server port will be automatically closed no matter what. And this actually helps your security. And then finally, you can assess potential vulnerabilities across Azure SQL and storage services through data discovery and classification services that Security Center provides to you. This way, you can classify and audit access to sensitive data in Azure, and based on those audit results, you can make security decisions. You can go and manage your security policies, and you can apply those right after you see what's going on with your data services. So again, it's easier if we look at a demo right now and figure out how stuff happens in the real life in the Azure portal. This demo is also provided by Mr. Ben Klinger, who works for Microsoft. And these demos that I'm using within this video were provided on the duration of September 24th to 28th of 2018, when Microsoft Ignite in Florida of Orlando was held.
So going back to Azure Security Center, we were still in the networking blade last time we were here. Now I want to talk about the security alerts, right? Because we talked about our coverage for IaaS and PaaS. So all of the alerts that you get from Azure Security Center are going to appear in this alerts queue. It's a unified view for all of the alerts that were detected in your environment, whether these were generated by us, by our service, right? As I've said, we have a very large team of security researchers. We invest heavily in that. But more than that, from Microsoft partners that are connected, right, to Azure Security Center, that are integrated with Azure Security Center. So Windows Defender ATP, Microsoft Cloud App Security as well, and other threat detection services that are available as part of the Azure platform. So everything is being shown as part of this alerts queue. Every alert that you have in Azure Security Center comes with full information about the alert. That means that you see which resource was attacked, and you also get full description about the attack, including remediation steps that we recommend to enable, right, in order to mitigate that specific threat. We also talked about adaptive application controls and just-in-time VM access. So let's start with just-in-time VM access. That's available via the Advanced Cloud Defense section in this area over here, right? And when you click on that, you see two important areas to focus on. The VMs that are already configured with just-in-time VM access, and VMs that are recommended for just-in-time VM access. That means that those VMs were detected by us as vulnerable VMs that we recommend to enable the mechanism on. So all we need to do in order to enable JIT, and that's super easy, that's also available via our APIs and the PowerShell commands that we've released. All you need to do is select the specific VM, click on Enable JIT, and then select the ports, either the ones that are recommended by default by Azure Security Center, or add custom ports, right, that you want to protect with this mechanism. Define the just-in-time policy around the allowed protocol, source IPs, and the maximum amount of time for which the port is allowed to be open upon an approved request. And that's it, right? When you click on the Save button over here, it's a demo environment, so I don't want to change anything. This VM and these ports will now be protected with the just-in-time mechanism from Azure Security Center. Now, let's say that your admin now wants to access the machine. Right now, let's say it wants to RDP to a machine. All it needs to do, again, also available via APIs and via PowerShell commandlets, but also available here in this UI in Azure Security Center. You just need to select the specific VM you want to access, click on Request Access, select the specific port you want to open. Let's say I want to open the RDP only to my IP, and let's say I just want to open it for 1 hour. I'll click on Open Ports, and that's it. What will now happen in the background is Azure Security Center will validate my request, right? It will make sure that I have the required permissions in order to open that specific port, right? And once it is approved, Azure Security Center will open this port for 1 hour, and then we'll also make sure that this port is not accessible after that 1 hour time ends. That's about JIT. One more thing I want to mention about that, because it's coming very, very soon, This whole flow of configuring JIT and requesting access very soon is also going to also be available as part of the VM experience within Azure. If you're familiar with the connect option in the VM blade, where you can download the RDP connection details or the SSH details you need to get in order to log into the machine. When JIT is going to be enabled, that's going to be tightly integrated, so your users will must go through this process of first requesting access to a specific port, approve the request, and only then they will be able to connect to the machine. So that's about just-in-time VM access. Adaptive application controls. It's a similar experience where you get the configured groups of virtual machines and the recommended groups of virtual machines. When you select a specific group, and again, we need to remember, this is all being done automatically, right? You don't need to configure anything. And we have a lot of users who are already using it today, very happy about it. I can refer some of them after this talk if it will be relevant. And what you can see here, you get the recommendation of the applications that are recommended to be allowed by Azure Security Center. And again, that is based on learning, right? On an analysis that Azure Security Center has done to the processes, to the applications that were running on your virtual machines. Who are the users that were running those applications? Then it all forms into a recommendation in Azure Security Center for the set of applications that need to be allowed for this group of machines, right? So that means, why do I say group of machines, right? Another thing that we have is an automated clustering mechanism that clusters similar machines together, right? Because when you think about application whitelisting, and one of its biggest challenges, it's around manageability. How do you make sure that you have tailored policies for the relevant virtual machines, for the relevant servers? So Azure Security Center does all of that automatically, learning which applications are being run and by who, cluster similar VMs together, then pop it up in the form of recommendation in Azure Security Center. And when you will click on Create, over here, again, I won't do that because it's a demo environment, Security Center will automatically apply the application whitelisting policies and rules on each of the virtual machines within that group, making sure that you have an effective application whitelisting policy on audit mode, right? So when you do that, by default, Security Center does not block anything, right? That's important to understand that. And that's super powerful even if you think about it from a threat detection perspective, right? If you want to understand if your users are only using the applications that are allowed to, right? And get notified when they don't. But of course, we don't stop there, right? I've talked about the full end-to-end automated platform. Once those rules are in place, you can go to the Configure tab and select the specific group of machines. And you can then also change the protection mode, right? You can change it from audit to enforce, right? You can see if there were alerts that were detected by Azure Security Center, right, in the last week. You can see which VMs are currently configured. You can also extend the policy manually, right? If you want to add more applications to the whitelist to these specific VMs. You can change rules, you can remove rules. Everything is being done as part of this manageability experience in Azure Security Center. And once you finish all of your changes, once you finish all of your editing, again, those will be applied automatically by Azure Security Center. So we will make sure that the application whitelisting solution is effective and deployed on the protected virtual machines.
A very useful and detailed demo. Just remember that Mr. Kliger says we will make sure something. He is referring to Microsoft as he's an employee with Microsoft. So now let's talk about getting secure faster, which is the last pillar that we want to go through this video. So what it does is automatically discover and onboard Azure resources. We'll talk about that. Extend to server workloads running in other clouds and on-premises data center, and integrate with existing workflows and tools that you may be using for your security. So the extension to the hybrid cloud is basically a seamless Azure integration. It automatically discovers and monitors security of all Azure resources through installing ATP or local agents on the servers and VMs. It does extensive log collection. Remember, as I explained before, we are heavily relying on the log analytics when it comes to Azure Security Center, and it protects servers running on the other cloud and on-premises servers. This is awesome. So it doesn't matter if you have your server somewhere within your building or in another cloud service like AWS from Amazon or Google Cloud, or it's a physical server. No matter what it is, Azure seamlessly integrates those into the security center, and therefore you have one place to go and take care of your security rather than managing it in different locations. And this is awesome. This is awesome because it makes your job easier, it makes your network more secure, and the provisioning actually happens automatically for Azure resources themselves. And your on-premises ones are bringing into this being considered an Azure resource, which makes your life super duper easy. Integrating with existing workflows and tools also happens seamlessly for you. So respond quickly to threats with automated workflows. You can create those workflows and decide what is going to be your response. And in case of an exploit or a security risk coming up, Azure basically follows those workflows for you. Those workflows could come from like a Splunk, IBM, or SIEM, or any other third-party provider. Still, Azure can consolidate SOC insights by integrating with existing SIEM solutions or Splunk solutions. It also can report to those and let them take action. So, as you can see, Security Center sends information to the Azure monitoring, and Azure monitoring send it to the Event Hub, which then could post those into any other services that you're using, and that integration basically could cause a response to an existing threat or a risk in a very automated fashion. The automation, as I said, supports the REST APIs and PowerShell commandlets, which means you can use any type of command input or service input, no matter which services you're using at the time. So, integrating with security partners basically creates possibility for you to go to any security partner that you already have, third parties, and bring their full services into the Azure Security Center. In this case, you see we have different partners shown on the slide. So it recommends and streamlines provisioning of partner solutions and integrates signals for centralized alerting and advanced detections in just one place that all those could be fed from, and enables monitoring and basic management. So I think you can see it better in the demo, but so far you have noticed that the way that the Azure Security Center is actually designed, you really don't need to be worried about anything or any type of normal issues that a migration faces or a change in the platform faces, such as what about the security services I already use? What about IBM, SIEM, or Splunk helping me in securing my network? What happens now? All of them, whatever third party solution you have could come into one place, on top of the fact that it doesn't matter where your resources are. You're not limited to the resources you are provided by Azure itself. You can add your local computers, local servers, or VMs from other services over here. So as you can see, it's pretty strong security service infrastructure that is providing through Microsoft Security Center. Now let's go back to our demos and take a look at the demo for the last part. Remember, in this demo, you also are going to be advised on the new features and services that Microsoft introduced on September 27th, 2018.
So we've already talked on Secure Score, and we've already talked on the network map. I've shown it in the beginning of the talk and the demo. I want to show you how the containers are now available as part of Azure Security Center. So those recommendations are available as part of the Compute and App section over here. When you click on that, you can see that we have a new tab that we've introduced, containers. It's now in preview. What you will see here are all of the Docker containers that run on Linux servers that were identified, right? And you will see whether or not these are secure or not. When you will click on a specific container instance, you will see, you will get information about that. You can see that we have an active recommendation to remediate vulnerabilities in container security configurations. Once you will click on that, you get more information about that, including remediation steps. And when you click on the Take Action, you will see that we will take you to the Log Analytics platform, where those queries are now available for you to see what are the vulnerabilities that we have detected, right, for those container instances. The Wi-Fi can be better here, but it's available as part of new capabilities. Let's give it 2 more seconds. No. Let's go back. So that was about containers. Talked about regulatory compliance standards and the mapping that we have now available in Azure Security Center. So that section will be available as part of the policy and compliance area in the navigation menu. And when you will click on the regulatory compliance, you can see the different standards that are now supported by Azure Security Center, such as Azure CIS, PCI, ISO, and SOC, right? And when you will click on each of those standards, you can see whether or not your resources comply, right, with those standards according to the mapping that we've done to the recommendations that are available as part of Azure Security Center and the requirements they map to in each of these standards. So, for example, we can see that in this specific one, under ISO, we see that we have 30 VMs that are currently not compliant, right? Because there are some vulnerabilities that need to be remediated in terms of the security configuration, right? And this is the baseline configuration assessment that is available for a very long time now in Azure Security Center. This specific one is mapped into this requirement from ISO, right? Access to networks and network services as part of A.912. Right? So we've done this mapping of every requirement and the recommendation it maps to in Azure Security Center. And as we keep on introducing new types of requirements and new type of services that are supported by Azure Security Center, those will be mapped into the specific, of course, standard and requirement that is available as part of Azure Security Center. So that's about regulatory compliance and the new capabilities that we're announcing. Let's go back to networking. So I think that by now you can understand that network security is a big area of investment for us. Right? We've started with this redesign of this display, that it's a brand new look to networking in Azure Security Center. The new network map that provides you with security overlays on top of topology view and the traffic configuration view. But now we're also going to energy hardening, right? Adaptive network controls. That's how we call it. What we're doing as part of this feature is that we provide you recommendations that are based on learning, right? And that's huge because that's something which is very unique to Azure Security Center as a service. We're analyzing all of the traffic that comes into your internet-facing VMs. We're starting with north-south traffic, as it is referred, right? Internet-facing VMs. We're analyzing the traffic patterns that comes in and out of your VMs. We're, of course, profiling those communications in order to understand how good communication patterns look like. We combine that with very, a vast threat intelligence pipeline that we have from Microsoft, right? And with other communications that we're seeing in Azure as a whole. Eventually, resolving in recommendations that you see in Azure Security Center for the set of rules that need to be applied per VM and port on your internet-facing VMs. That's massive, right? When you think about that, it's hard to understand how to manage and how to create network security groups, rules in a way that is effective and secure, right? That is now being done automatically for you. So when we now start with that, and again, it's in limited public preview, when you will enter Azure Security Center, you won't see this tile over here. You will see a registration link. So just click on that register and we'll help onboard you to this preview. You can see a couple of things. First, how many VMs are currently configured, how many alerts we're currently seeing, right? The alerts, and that's another capability which is only available as part of this feature. These are based on an auditing mechanism that we have developed, right? So we have those recommendations in one place, those audit rules that are not yet enforced on the network security group. We recommend you to enforce them, right? But you have those rules in place. Then you have our auditing mechanism that comes on top of these rules in order to analyze the traffic that comes in and is approved, right, by your existing configuration, and how it compares against the recommended rule set from Azure Security Center, right? So let's see how it looks like. When we will click on that, when we click on this area, we get to the north-south traffic hardening section, and we can see all of the VMs and whether or not we have identified alert on them, whether or not there are rules that are currently configured. And let's dive deeper into this specific VM. When we click on that, we see a couple of things. First, we see alerts, right? Those alerts that are generated by Azure Security Center, that you can call that energy auditing mechanism, right? Because that's something that is not available, because when you enforce a rule, it's simply enforced. You can't then check if something is blocked or something is allowed. So the first thing that we do, we tell you whether or not we have identified violations of the rules that either we have recommended you to apply, again, based on the machine learning engines that we have, or new custom audit rules that let's say you want to examine some new auditing rules, right, that are not necessarily generated by Azure Security Center. So let's start with the rules before I dive deeper into the alerts. When you click on the rules, you can see which rule is currently recommended by Azure Security Center. In this case, we can see that it is a manual rule that was created by a user or was changed by a user. In case there were some machine learning-based rules, they would have a different indication over here. But we can see that it is currently recommended here to protect the RDP port and to allow access. Again, we're talking about allow rules, right, in auditing protection mode, only to this source IP. So what we'll now be doing, we'll be examining all of the traffic that comes into your workloads, into this specific VM, right? We'll try and see if that traffic was approved by the network security group configuration that you have in place. And then we'll compare it against the rule that we have here. And that will eventually form up this alert that you get from Azure Security Center as part of this feature. Of course, that you can edit that specific rule. This is how it becomes a manual rule instead of an automatic-based rule. But you can add, as I've said, your own custom rule. Let's say that you now want to add a custom rule for SSH or for WinRM or for any other port that you want to use this mechanism for internet-facing VMs. You simply configure it over here, and that's it. Next phase of this feature will, of course, take us through a full automated solution, right? We will not only recommend you which rules need to be applied, we'll also enable you to automatically enforce those rules in the network security group within a click, right? So you would not need to take those recommendations and then manually create the rules in the network security groups and decide where they need to be applied, whether it's on the NIC or on the subnet, and how do you make sure the traffic is indeed allowed, only the traffic that you want to allow. So that's something we will get to later on this year. But now that we have the rules, let's go back to the alerts that I've talked about. So we can see that we have an alert traffic from forbidden IP addresses was detected. We see that we have a specific count here, and we see that the destination protocol that we're seeing here is on UDP, right, and on the RDP port. Now let's think about it, right? In this rule over here, the audit rule that we have in place covers the TCP protocol. But when we have an alert, that means that we have identified traffic that is allowed by your network security group. Right? Probably there is an any-to-any sort of rule that allows traffic to the UDP port, right? Not to a TCP port, right? And Security Center, because we didn't recommend you, right? It's not based on a learning that we've done. It's not based on even a manual audit rule that you have inserted. We've identified traffic that comes into this port. We'll alert you on that. So you see, you get an alert from Azure Security Center. With information about this alert, we can see which IP is communicated through this port and this VM, how many connection attempts we've identified, and, of course, remediation steps, how to deal with that specific alert in order to make sure that those IPs can't, again, establish successful connections to your VM on this specific port. So that was a short demo of the container support, the new regulatory compliance section that we have, and we're going to keep on extending, and the north-south adaptive network hardening controls that we now have available in limited public preview.
Okay, now with that demo, we're almost done with this video. Let's review what we went through and see some takeaways from this video. So the first is use Security Center to manage security for Azure resources. Everything in one place called Security Center interface, and you can take care of everything that you need to do regarding your security. Second is get advanced threat protection with Security Center standard. So basically, it automatically looks at the threats and reacts to the threats. And finally, third and last is onboard on-premises and other cloud workloads to the same place. Integrate them, have them at the same place, take care of it. And with that said, this concludes the video, and thank you for watching.